Hi everybody, welcome to the webinar this evening. It is Thursday, January 20th, 2016. This is a webinar that we have had requested several times from many people who know about wilderness therapy for parents, because parents, this is one of those things where parents don't know how much they do. And they also don't know how much therapy happens in between the therapist's visits to the field. So I think it's really critical that parents understand this and understand all that's going on. And really become acquainted with who I first was impressed by when I was doing wilderness therapy. The first thing I noticed when I started doing wilderness therapy was how amazing these field instructors were in so many ways. So who are these people? Who does this job? Some of them come because they have an affinity for nature and outdoors and a belief that there's an intrinsic healing power to nature. Some of them are psychologically inclined to be a therapist. They're looking on that track, and this is, for some of them, a stop before they become it, or something that can feel that passion for them. And then many of them are former students. All these statistics are on average when we ask. So we've done surveys several times over the years. So that's where this comes from. About 25% of our current field staff are former students. I put in parentheses, or they should have been students, because they can relate to the struggle that a lot of the young people, adolescents and young adults have gone through and are going through. On average, they're about 27 years old. Average length of employment was 20 months. That is significantly increased since we started our programs. And more than 85% have a college degree, and many of them have advanced degrees. So that gives you an idea of who they are and where they come from. I'm going to talk about what they do during their training week, because they really get immersed in this process by going out to the field and by experiencing their own wilderness immersion. And then I'm going to talk about some various trainings that we do all along the way, so you get how skilled, how amazing these people are and what they're exposed to. They first learn about the typical student. They'll meet a group, but they also learn about the various diagnoses and presentations from students. Of course, they have to know, many of them are already aware of low-impact camping. They have to become aware of hard and soft skills. So they have to learn how to do the basic things like make a fire by rubbing sticks together, to build a shelter. They have to demonstrate that competence and have it passed off. They also have to demonstrate basic soft skills, our basic communication model, right? Reflective listening, de-escalation, I feel statements. That's something that they have to pass off early on. They become familiar with the packet of work that has the therapeutic assignments, the hard skill assignments, the soft skill assignments that all of our clients and students go through. They learn about and are exposed to ceremonies. We run them through several behavioral ceremonies so that they can learn how to de-escalate, how to deal with conflict, how to deal with something that's starting to become a problem. We give them some experience on solos, just like we do in the clients and the students. Because part of what we're trying to assess here, we want them to be comfortable and capable enough in the wilderness that they don't have to spend a lot of mental energy or resources on keeping themselves okay, safe, and warm. Right? If they're spending all of their energy on that, they don't have enough left over to take care of the participants in the program. A therapist will do a training with them early on in the process, and they get a basic introduction of the foundational therapeutic approaches that we use in our program. Our ratios, that's one thing that sets Evoke apart from most wilderness programs. Our ratios are impressive. We helped write, our executive director helped write the state regulations, and we exceed all the regulations that the state requires. So typically, the state ratio is 4-to-1. We oftentimes have 3-to-1, sometimes 2-to-1 in terms of student to staff ratios. They have to go through an internship before they're allowed to be responsible for any student. So that's 24 days in the wilderness. That's basically a training plus 2.5 more rotations that they go through. So they have to become comfortable and skilled in it. They have to come on in the beginning, and they have to know first aid, CPR, and they begin to understand and know about personal control system, that is restraining in a violent situation or a self-harming situation, and of course that comes along with de-escalation training. Every single group has a wilderness first responder in it, at least, or what is essentially a wilderness EMT. And that's a level 3 staff. So they go through various levels. So every group has at least one of those all the time. And sometimes they have many more than those, of course. They learn to become good at conducting their own sessions. Their own sessions aren't necessarily as clinically sophisticated as the therapists, but they become ancillary to them. They become in addition to the therapist. So we ask them to have a couple of sessions individually with the student that they are to be supervising that week. And then one of the things we did to change the wilderness therapy industry years ago was we invited our staff into our sessions. So then they can create that bridge, that glue from what's going on during the week to what's happening in the session. Because for years before that, students could come into session. It was kind of like outpatient therapy, right? They could present, hold it together for that 1-2 hours a week with the therapist that they meet with individually. And then there was something entirely different. So the staff, the instructors, make sure that there's communication. They can bring from the session for the rest of the week and say, we talked about this in session. Remember when Brad talked about this? Or they bring it back into the session and say, right now you're saying you're not angry, but several times this week you were struggling with frustration and anger about being here at the program or dealing with your parents or whatever it is. So they make sure that there's an integration between the therapy sessions, the formal therapy sessions, and the entire program, which is, of course, therapeutic. And then we continue to provide them weekly trainings. And because they're sitting in session, do you know how rare it is? Even for me, I have not been able to sit on a lot of therapy sessions in my life. And how rare it is for people to get to sit in on a session and the training and the knowledge that can happen there. A lot of times what I'm doing with the staff is modeling for them what I want them to do with the students. So I'll sit with them afterwards and I'll talk about some of the paperwork that we have and I'll say, did you see in the session when she was saying this or he was saying this and I responded this way? That's the kind of thing that I want you to do this week coming up. They get evaluated as they move up through the levels 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And one thing I think that we are exceptional at is giving feedback. Feedback happens every day, every night. Constructive, non-judgmental, but helpful feedback. So we do that a lot, but there's formal evaluations that they go through as they're progressing and as they're early in their program. Of course, they know the phrases. They learn to give feedback with each other. They become more and more proficient at hard skills. That's something that some of them are already good at, but some of them aren't, and they become a skill. We want them to be able to model it. And it's also okay for them in their early phases to not be proficient at some of it because it really helps the students to feel kind of like they've accomplished somebody when they see somebody struggling to make a fire. They have to learn how to read maps, consistent modeling. One of the things that gets asked of me so often by parents is, my child is manipulative. So what are you going to do to make sure that they don't manipulate, they don't recreate some of the manipulation that they've done in the past? I can assure you that's what we think about and talk about all the time. And Willis is especially good at that because it's hard, like I said, to hold it together for days on end. You can hold it together for an hour or two, but the weather and the elements, the lack of escape routes, as I call it, really does end up creating a situation where the client shows up. And so they might be able to say the right thing one time, but what they do becomes the voice that we listen to and pay the most attention to. We ask them to, of course, practice and execute firm boundaries, practice safety and medication. They track every day all of our students, their feet, their hands. They watch them take their medication. They log it. They call us, the therapist, if there's a refusal to take medication. So they're keeping track of that all the time, every day. They're watching how much water they drink. Specifically, how many quarts they drink a day. We ask students and clients to drink a minimum of 4 quarts a day and as much as 6 quarts a day, depending upon the season and the individual. And they know how to run groups. This is not babysitters. When our staff move from us to go to therapeutic schools and residential treatment centers, they will say almost to a person every time, I loved working for Evoke because I was empowered and I learned so much and I was able to use my creativity and passion. And here I'm asked to babysit. So they're really a valuable big part of the program. As I'll say tonight, the most underrated part of wilderness therapy from outsiders. Understanding the role of the field staff, daily routine, logistical concerns, program philosophy, policies. There's a lot that goes into it. It's an incredibly deep and rich job. They're able to invite awareness. I use that phrasing because it's not about confrontation, right? It's not about punching somebody in the nose verbally. They can be clear, not sugarcoat it, but they're able to use the principles of a book called Motivational Interviewing. So they don't provoke a defense in the client or attack the defense, but rather have a discussion where they can point out discrepancies, share their own experience, stay out of the power struggle, and still invite and encourage awareness. Time management is a big thing out there. They plan and run daily activities. I always ask them to bring their own passion, right? Follow the treatment plan that I set up, but then bring your passion. Ask me, if you have a book that you want to read, or you want to do Tai Chi with the group, or a certain kind of yoga, please ask us about that. And 99 times out of 100, I'm going to add that to the clinical plan for the week. They're able to take initiative in treatment planning and group therapy. If it ever gets over their head, they can call us by satellite or cell phone and contact us, and we can give them redirection. They really do implement the treatment plans. We fill out, and I'll talk about this, a form each week in duplicate. Triplicate for young adults, duplicates for adolescents. We keep a copy. One goes to the field instructor that's in charge of your student, your client. I'll explain that in a second. And if they're a young adult, they get the pink copy. And that's what they're accountable for. So at the end of the week, if something's not completed on that sheet, then they're there to give us an explanation about why it didn't get accomplished and the several interventions that they tried to use so that it was accomplished. We ask them to contact us if they have any question before it becomes a crisis. The therapists make themselves available. The senior field leadership make themselves available, or the clinical director, or whomever. They're capable of giving sophisticated clinical assessments. It's something we practice every single week with our teams. All of our team is giving clinical updates and reports to each other and to us. So there's time for instruction in there. Talked about the creativity and enthusiastic daily planning. They learn, of course, how to delegate. This is a job that easily could lead to burnout because you're out there for 8 days. 8 days in a row without coming in. And then 6 days off, and then repeat that for 8 days. So every Tuesday, all of our staff are working. And then the staff team that is leaving, the staff shift that is leaving, is gone for the next 6 days until the following Tuesday morning. And then they overlap again with the outgoing field staff. So it's important that they learn how to take care of themselves, manage self-care, set healthy boundaries. Really, in many cases, trying to practice and model the same kinds of things that we're trying to teach parents. To be able to identify dynamics and trends and to share those with both the student clients and with the therapists. Deal creatively with aggression and defiance, because it's so easy, as you can imagine, to have it devolve into a power struggle. I already talked about avoiding manipulation. Again, this phrase, monitoring countertransference, that's not a typical phrase for a wilderness therapy program historically, not even for one today. I talk about and teach countertransference to our field instructors every week. Every week we have a supervision call where we say, how's it going? What's your reaction to the student? Right? Or do you have a difficult one that you're dealing with? Let's use a couple of cases and talk and teach about it. That's a high level of clinical sophistication that, to be honest with you, many programs around the country don't even do that kind of work with a therapist. Right? It's always about, give me a technique or a skill or a tool to fix the client, the student, but not what's going on for me, what's my reaction, why am I frustrated, why am I feeling hopeless and discouraged? Those kinds of reactions. That's pretty high level stuff. Learning how to use the milieu. The milieu does so much work. I'll say this a couple of times tonight. The most powerful, impactful stuff often that happens is the stuff that happens in between the therapist visit. Now, you experience us the most because we're the ones contacting you and giving you the report. We are your window into your child's program. But the heavy lifting, the deep work, happens the minute we drive out of the field. And that's when it starts. And for many clients and students, that's a hard moment when the therapist leaves. They know they're leaving for 3 or 4 days. And talk therapy for many of them becomes kind of an escape from the hard work. And the therapists are there for that rubber on the road experience of meeting the student where they're at and dealing with it. They're able to talk about the intention and philosophy. We talk so much about intention. When I sit in an in-service and somebody asks me, what do you do? What's your line with this? The question I always ask is, what's the intention? Right? And our intention, we have to know the principles well enough to be able to change from person to person and from time to time. So the same thing you might do with one student, you won't do with another in terms of reacting to some issue. And you're also going to change the way you react to a particular student as it moves over time. So looking at and understanding program philosophy, not just the rules and regulations, you are accountable for the policies and procedures, but understanding the intention. Learning to be creative and not get in a rut. Games are an important part of it. We do a lot of play, activities, intervention. Bring your own approaches. Bring your passion with you. Able to meld that personal passion with the skeletal structure of the program, right? What we provide. Role model communication with your peers and with the students and clients. As they move on, the more senior, the levels 4 and 5, specifically the 5s very specifically, they are to teach field staff. They'll be in a group, but their role is to mentor the other field staff and to kind of lead from behind. So that's something, just like with the clients and students we have them do, is teaching each other. So they'll work through, if I'm a level 5, we call them a mentor staff, then if I see something, I'll talk to a more junior staff and explain to them, hey, this is something we need to do, or we can help with the situation over here. So let's talk about it. Let's come up with a solution or an approach. They have to teach and learn in service. They have to write papers on the theory of change. They have to be very vigilant regarding the policies and procedures. Taking breaks, providing breaks for others, modeling good self-care, because like I said, if you don't do that, it's so easy to burn out. And this is the only bolded, italicized word. Demonstrate, practice intentionality. That is our training. Where are you coming from? What do you want to do? Not simply be married to a rule. Let the rule be the guide, but understand when there's opportunities for flexibility. Encourage and model advocacy of students and peers, right? That everybody gets to ask for something. They get to ask questions. And students that are struggling, being there to support them, but not rescuing them, encouraging them to find their own voice. Making sure that they're ultimately physically and emotionally safe, but also nudging them to help them figure out how to solve that problem, because you're not going to be there. We're not going to be there all the time. Continuing professional development and education, we do that with weekly in-services, weekly trainings, weekly visits with the individual therapist, and weekly supervision calls with me. And then we also provide other opportunities out of program for that. I already talked about how they have to provide a written statement. We want them to be able to think clinically, so they have to write a paper on their theoretical approach to change. They're responsible for the day-to-day care of the students. I already talked about yellows. They are accountable to those each week during the group that we have, which is called the Milan group. That's the old staff that's leaving and the new staff that's coming in, and the therapist talking about the week. Talking about what happened, what didn't happen, giving observations, and referring back to that yellow. They are also able to create and alter treatment plans. We ask them to check with a therapist if there's a significant change in a treatment plan. Check it out with them. Brainstorm with them and come up with an idea together. I already explained how they do the reporting the progress each week. They're in the relationship with the students and the client, maybe more so than even the therapist in many ways. They often begin to replicate relationships that parents have because they're living with them, right? And so we therapists then use that as kind of a pseudo-family therapy, right? A temporary family therapy session to talk and work through it. And we make assessments about systemic dynamics, responses to certain personalities, parallels to what's going on at home, make observations and interventions related to that. Here's what instructors are not. They are not therapists. They are not psychiatrists. And they're not testing professionals. So obviously a therapist at Evoke is going to have more language and education in these areas. And what the staff bring is the passion, the intuitiveness, right? The care, the love. They bring all of that. The follow through and the professionality. And like I said, they kind of take on the parent role, but not really, right? It's not the same. They get to go home at the end of 8 days, right? I always say this. I said this to a group of parents today. In some ways, you would be better with our children than we are, and sometimes, right? That detachment is easier when it's not your child. They're not just babysitters. They're much, much more skilled, trained, intentional, and part of the process. The follow-up research on the effectiveness of wilderness therapy says that our clients and clients of students from other programs attribute change to the wilderness staff, to the field staff, to the instructors, more than the therapist. Right? That's not true in every case, but that is a research finding that they get more credit from the participant themselves. The parents attribute more of it to, of course, the therapist because they have more contact with them than they do the field staff. But any of you who have made a visit, come out to a workshop, done an overnight, many of you will attest to how amazing and wonderful these people are. Each has their own strength and passion. And just modeling passion, the desire to learn, is a fantastic contribution to your child's program. If you hear the word DAPS, there's a whole jargon, and I have a webinar on jargon. We have a jargon dictionary on our website. The word DAPS is an acronym for the daily assessment plan. So what happens is 9 students, 9 clients, 4 staff, they get assigned to be responsible for one particular one. So that with 4, you're going to talk about, 3 of them are going to have 2 and one might have 3 people that they're responsible with. Meeting with them during the week, specifically following up on that person's treatment plan. All the staff are involved with everything, but they're specifically accountable for that one person. They're also accountable for the paperwork, the daily assessment plan that they have to fill out, physical safety, behaviors that day, medications, all that. They're responsible for those students. So that's what a DAPS is. They get assigned DAPS for the week. And we make those an intentional math. We want to make sure that it's a good fit, right? Also, sometimes we want to make sure that it challenges the client and student. Maybe it's a similar personality presentation than mom or dad that you struggle with at home. So that might be what it's about. Matching the strength of the specific staff member, field instructor, to your child's needs is a part of it. And then, of course, putting them in that so that they can ultimately be a role model. The temptation, the seduction sometimes is too much talk therapy. That's a part of our program, right? There's standing groups, there's groups every day, there's sessions on the trail, hiking, working together. That's happening. But it can be very seductive to just do that or to do too much of that. It's the stuff in between the sessions. Even my own therapy sessions as a client, it's the stuff in between the sessions that becomes important. What the session becomes, what the discussions become, is this reference point, this square that we line up to, that recharges us, that refocuses us, that we go out and then have to do some of the tough work. They give cell phone and satellite updates and ask questions. They do that midweek. They can do that anytime they have a question or there's a concern. Adding to the treatment plan after the calls. Sometimes I'll finish a phone call with a family and say, you know what, there's something new that came up on the phone call. I will leave then a message with the group saying, add this assignment, add this principle to the treatment plan for the week. I've already described how they sit in sessions and become the glue or the bridge between the session and the rest of the week, which is incredibly powerful, and the role they play in the Milan group. All right, if what I've said so far has been a mouthful, wait till you see the next few slides. What follows is a series of slides with quotes. They are text-heavy slides and represent a slice of what those who do this job believe what it makes. This is me asking our field staff, tell me what you think makes a good field staff. So you get to see, you get to hear their voice through me. If you want copies of this presentation, just email us at webinar@drbradreedy.com. We're happy to give it to you because there's way too much text on here. But I wanted you to have their votes, and obviously I couldn't invite all of them on here. All right, first quote. A good field instructor will role model this relationship patiently and encourage as well as guide the student along in participating in it, providing as many opportunities as they can for this to happen, regardless of how the student responds. One of the things we can't turn off in the field is the job of role modeling for the students. We are being constantly observed and critiqued by the students when we are with them. A good field instructor understands this and allows it to humble them, using opportunities when they arise to show what honesty, accountability, and even vulnerability look like when mistakes are made or confrontation or misunderstandings occur. We acknowledge our weaknesses as people. Quote 2. One of the advantages we have as field instructors who live with the students for a week at a time is that we have the opportunity to observe them with their guard down. Often the therapist is seen as an important authority figure and sees an enhanced level of performance from many students. Most students can't maintain this level of performance all week for the field instructors. So we have many opportunities to see and hear a more raw and real version of what is going on for each student at this stage in the wellness program, at their stage. A good field instructor cares about the students and strives to empower them to be the best version of themselves and fosters growth without trying to force. They receive guidance and instruction from the therapist throughout the course of the student's stays and are constantly making split-second decisions along with forming focused and big-picture plans for the group and the individual students. Instructors and students report to the therapist on Tuesdays or Wednesdays, and much of the information is verbal versus action-based. Instructors are involved in what actions the student decide to take to support the decisions that are healthy and attempt to interrupt the less healthy decisions while pushing students to think about the short and long-term consequences. Instructors have an extensive toolbox of policies, procedures, interventions, program norms, but ask themselves an important question before responding to what they observe. What does the student need right now, and how can I help facilitate it? Use of intention in decision making is well executed and distinguishes our instructors from other programs. Staff also work on a thorough training and development system. They range from brand new to 7 years in the field. Experience levels are divided equally among staff teams to continue peer development process outside of just the therapist. Staff generally meet up every night, oftentimes even more, to discuss group themes, individual student progress on the treatment goals, staff feedback. This allows staff teams to adjust and hone how and what needs attention at the group and individual student level. All right, I'm almost done with the quotes. Instructors exercise a rational detachment and attempt to avoid expecting a specific outcome. That's a really hard one, and that's one that can lead to burnout, and they do a good job with that. Staying involved, invested, assertive, directive, but not getting frustrated or burnt out when they don't get what they want. Consistently, staff who work at our program share on the exit interviews that this is the best job that they have ever had, that they learned more than they thought, and they felt empowered in their role as an instructor. I think a good instructor enjoys and is comfortable living in the outdoors, and energy is not spent in the comfort and or taking care of themselves in that way, but rather can be focused on to the students. A good staff has a sense of humor, is creative, and works well under intense situations with a wide variety of people. A solid field staff is positive and caring and often has a natural ability to look past a person's behaviors and or facades and can see a person for who they really are and can help pull the realness through all the other crap. A good instructor is hungry for knowledge and wants to learn and try new things. Field instructors do magic in the field by just being there, listening, caring, relating, mentoring, coaching, teaching, loving, sharing. A good field staff is also skilled at being a professional, can follow instruction and take the lead, and is a good communicator. And then one person listed all this. They listen with genuine interest and care. They have a real desire to understand where the perspective of the client. They provide honest feedback to the client. They do well in avoiding rescuing or being manipulated by the client. They don't sugarcoat their thoughts. They tend to avoid reacting emotionally or being pulled into the client's drama. This type of communication isn't easy, and it takes a lot of practice. They demonstrate compassion and understanding to a struggling student or client. That should say avoiding judgment. All right, I just want to tell you this one story that was shared when I asked for this feedback. A female student was being exceptionally difficult during her Earth phase. Staff were having to spend a lot of time with her, keeping her safe and reminding her to eat and drink. She was trying her hardest to be difficult, hoping to get kicked out of the program. She had yelled at staff, called them names, and told them to F off, etc. The staff continued to support her, being very empathetic and patient with her. When Tuesday came, she was visibly distressed. Recognizing her nervousness, the staff explained to her what the staff change process and how it would happen. The girl turned to the staff and, genuinely anxious, asked, "Are you going to come back next shift?" The staff smiled and said, "You want me to, don't you?" The girl sheepishly shook her head yes. I think it goes to show that even when clients are as mean as they can be to staff, they really appreciate all the care and kindness that staff show. So, like I said, I hope it gives you a picture of what these people do, and I hope that you understand. You know, sometimes clients say that they want more sessions, they want the therapist out there. It wouldn't work as well. We're out there the exact right amount of time. And the staff are extraordinarily capable of creating the intervention in conjunction with the wilderness that it needs to be for your child. And the therapist is an important person on that treatment team to be the architect of it. And the bridge between what's going on with the family at home, with the parents at home, and with the child that's in the field. Everything is the therapy. Everything is grist for the mill. And it's especially important when the therapist is not there, right? That's some of the most critical therapy. The staff are the unsung heroes, especially from the parents. That's why I've been asked to do this, so that parents understand that and see that. So they can value the 5 days a week that the therapist isn't present. They're a powerful mentor. They have passion. They have detachment. It's the same message. It's just a different package. I always say they don't look like you. They don't sound like you. They don't smell like you, right? And I mean that literally. But they're bringing the same core principles, values, that you would want to teach them. And when the child hears it from somebody who looks so and seems so counterculture as many of our staff are, it's less threatening. It's not about mom and dad anymore. It's about the world and the way that it works. And that's some of the power of this group of people and what they can bring to your child. All right, I'm happy to take any questions you might have. They're topic related. Are many of your staff Knowles grads? What do you think about Knowles? That's an outdoor leadership school. Some are similar. So we have world-class guides in some of our that have done some world-class guiding high adventure trips. So some of them bring that. There's also the Boss School, and so yeah, we're supportive. We have such a heavy clinical overlay, such high expectations about what our staff bring to the table clinically. That's a great foundation to have that. And then you put on top of it all that we're talking about, all their teaching, all of our work around countertransference, attachment theory, 12-step work, dialectical behavioral therapy, on and on, and you have a pretty amazing individual in terms of their skill set. So a handful of them are. I don't know what the numbers are. I think the most difficult thing is when a staff comes and think that no matter what, from what perspective, that they know it, that they can't be a student. What do you mean it doesn't smell like you? They're out there for 8 days, and many of them don't shower when they're out there. And they smell pretty much like your students. If you haven't been out to the field yet, if you haven't smelled your client or student yet, your child yet, you'll know exactly what I mean. And they like to eat garlic and spicy food and curry and all kinds of interesting things out there. So they end up smelling like, they don't smell each other. That's the interesting thing. The students and the staff can't smell each other. You actually smell strange when you come out there, but they all just smell like nothing to each other. But then you walk out there and all you are is freshly showered, not even cologne or not even perfume, but you smell strong and actually difficult at times. So I mean literally. All right, folks. I hope it's a good introduction. I hope it's a good point of contact for you. Here's some upcoming things that are coming up. In Try to Parent Workshop, we heard that they had a great one this last weekend. Here are the upcoming ones. Contact Gail to Voc Therapy. The upcoming, I'm doing a workshop in Phoenix. It's a one-time deal that a group asked me to come to. The next workshop, Finding You in Heroic Parenting, is the same workshop. It's just that at Finding You, there can be young adults there if they want to come. But most of it's going to be parents, most of the time. Contact intensives at evoketherapy.com. And you can, if you're near Phoenix, you can look at the one down there. Here are the upcoming parent support groups. We just did a parent support group in Los Angeles Monday, so we have to reschedule one. Right now, the Bay Area one is happening right now. New York City is, I didn't put the date there. It's on your parent portal, or it's on Facebook. That's another good reason to follow us on Facebook or Twitter. And then Houston is coming up on March 16th. In fact, I'm sorry if I can, I'll just tell you the address if anybody's in Houston. There might be somebody on here from Houston. Because Michael sent this to me tonight and I forgot to put it on here. It is at the Houston Marriott Medical Center, which is 6580 Fannin Street in Houston. I'll put that up here on the next one, and it'll be on the parent portal. You can contact Stephanie at Evoke Therapy to RSVP or for more information. Our Pursuits trip, that's a high adventure trip. That can be for young adults, for sober fun. That can be for a family. It's less therapeutic than the intensives, but it's maybe just a good time to have a guide with you who, by the way, knows the communication model, is a very, very talented staff also, but you can just have sober fun, so you can consider that. Go to our website for more questions. We want every family to attend 6 of these meetings. Doesn't matter if your child uses drugs or alcohol. That's not what this is for. Try 6 of these. We ask you to. Follow us on social media so you can get announcements, updates, inspirational quotes, pictures, and stories. And then my book is available on Amazon. The paperback has been out for a week now. Also, somebody even told me today they listened to it on Audible and got a lot out of it while they were driving. All right, any last questions before I close it up, Michael? All righty. Next webinar will be Monday the 1st, and it'll be about young adults. So I'll talk a little bit about adolescents in contrast to young adults, but this is really what distinguishes the program for the young adults. What's the difference? I'll even talk about walking out, the threat that they have to walking out. I'll have a special couple of slides on that for those of you who have young adults and might be worried about that or might have even had that experience already. All right, folks, have a great evening. Hope these points of contact are helpful, and I'll talk to you Monday night. Take care. Bye-bye.